Well, good morning again and welcome. And I was reflecting last night that this is my 7th convocation address as Chancellor and my 15th as a President or Chancellor when I count my years at the University of Wyoming. You may not know this little factoid, I wouldn't expect you to, but that length of service as a President or Chancellor is about 3 times the average for presidents and chancellors across the country. It's kind of a hazardous occupation. In fact, in just 6 years, I've gone from being the least senior to the 3rd most senior chancellor in the University of North Carolina system, which has 17 of us. And as I think I mentioned last year, my children say that my longevity is explained by the fact that I have the ideal qualifications for the job. I have a receding hairline for that look of experience and hemorrhoids for that look of concern. And unfortunately, those conditions haven't changed. And I know that's probably too much information for some of you. But this is an annual event, of course, and it gives us a chance to kind of look back, look forward, but I'm going to spend most of my time today looking forward. For those of you new to UNC Charlotte, we do publish a newsletter every semester out of the Chancellor's office, and that's on the web page for the Chancellor's office in something called the Chancellor's Outbox. And if you really want to see some exciting speeches, we have videos as well. So you can go there for all the past news. Let me begin where I think most of you would have the most concern, and that's the condition of the budget for the coming year. I think everyone's more than aware of the challenges we faced this past year with the budget, discussions about reversions, discussions about the current budget, and what would be happening in the future. The current year reversions and the permanent reductions have been very, very painful, particularly in terms of constraining our ability to hire the new faculty and staff that we need to keep up with our growing enrollment. By now, most of you know that every campus gave back 3.5% of their budget last year as a current year reversion. And then in the case of UNC Charlotte, for the permanent budget starting on July 1 of this year, we gave back 16.2% of our appropriation. That's about $33.5 million. We haven't spent too much time talking about another dimension of this, and that is that a late year cash sweep, I guess I could best call it, by the State Budget Office to meet their year-end requirements resulted in us with deferred obligations of about $6.2 million that we must pay out of this next year's budget, but that were really due to obligations we had made last year. And so in a sense, we have deferred obligations that are going to take about 3% of our appropriation right off the top at the beginning of the year to have us deal with those obligations to service providers and vendors. The good news, and there is some good news, is that our budget management strategy largely worked over the past 3 years. More than 3 years ago, we tried to forecast what would happen, particularly in fiscal 12, this upcoming year. We hoped for the best, but we planned for the worst, and we implemented and executed the worst-case plan. And as a result, we were able to protect our investment in the recruitment and professional development of our existing faculty and staff with few layoffs and no furloughs. You, the folks in this audience, and your colleagues across the campus represent our most valued and important institutional asset, and we think we protected that. We simply could not replace your knowledge, your experience, and your commitment by turning back filled positions. We were able to make important investments as part of this plan in our physical infrastructure, both technologically and also in our landscapes. It's the kind of thing that makes this function better as a research institution, and certainly one of the most attractive campuses you'll find anywhere. And the state budget actually did have a couple of little glimmers of positive news, especially for UNC Charlotte. Enrollment increase funding of $7.3 million and about $3.8 million for the operations of the new Center City building and their energy production and infrastructure were included in our new appropriation, as was $3.6 million in funding for repairs and renovation, what we in the administration call R&R money. The so-called R&R money is not much for a campus which has facilities valued at more than $2.6 billion and more than $79 million in deferred maintenance needs. But it is better than nothing, which is what we received last year. A good part of our budget management strategy, as you know, was to limit new hiring to critical instructional and administrative positions. And we've had very good fortune in terms of the quality of the people we have been able to recruit. We've had a great season in terms of recruiting outstanding junior and senior faculty and an amazing group of new department heads, and we've added talented senior administrators. That crop of newcomers includes Betty Doster, who was formerly a senior official with the Bank of America, who serves us as Special Assistant to the Chancellor for Constituent Relations. And Betty was in the legislature doing the hard work of protecting our critical needs. Jerry Cowder joins us from George Mason University to head the Center City. And Johan Enslin, Johan will be leading EPIC. Our own Steve Ott and Nancy Faye Jensen from the University of Rhode Island are prepared to take the lead of the Belk College of Business and the College of Health and Human Services, respectively. And just yesterday, we were joined by Stephen Ward of the University of Wisconsin at Stevens Point, who will serve us as the new Executive Director of University Communications. We have high expectations that Stephen will be able to sharpen our integrated communication strategy to strengthen national, statewide, and regional awareness of the accomplishments of this institution. The expectations for Stephen are so high that many of us are already calling him Saint Stephen. The only person in Charlotte with higher expectations with respect to his job is Cam Newton. Now, to be sure, over the past 3 years, we have lost some very good people from among the ranks of both faculty and staff who've been offered other opportunities. Fortunately, though, although we have not been able to grow to keep pace with our enrollment, our staff turnover remains below our historic averages. Historically, we averaged 13 to 15%. In the last few years, we've averaged 7 to 8%, and we're now still at only 10. And in the faculty, from the tenure track faculty, we lost only 30 faculty over the last 3 years for reasons other than retirement, and that's about 3% of our tenured and tenure track faculty. Now, the challenge for the future, of course, is to hold on to as many talented people as we can. We enter a 4th straight year without salary increases for most people, as you know, and we faced a host of constraints placed upon us by our elected officials in terms of responding to threatened departures, including a prohibition on the use of our state funds. The state funds that used to be available in the Office of the General Administration to support faculty retention offers have been exhausted, and we simply don't have the non-state resources that many older, more established institutions have from donors and friends. We also face significant challenges to hiring new faculty and staff. Hiring at market rates, which we know in our hearts and in our heads is something we need to do to attract talent, is something that creates severe salary compression problems for the people who are already here, and it certainly creates morale problems to people who have worked so hard during these difficult times. We face additional challenges of hiring new SPA employees as a result of some action by the General Assembly that increased the vesting period for qualification of the state retirement system from 5 to 10 years. If we weren't already at a significant disadvantage in the Charlotte hiring market as a result of salary and benefit deficiencies, we certainly are now. We are going to work very hard to see if we can't get that reversed or modified in the future. Now, what will next year bring? We really don't yet know. We actually don't even have the money in our budget yet from this year's legislative session. I had the feeling, perhaps like you, that we were starting to turn the corner on the bottom, but of course the last few weeks have created a great deal of uncertainty for all of us, both in the domestic stock market, the incredibly enlightening debate over the debt ceiling, and unstable foreign economies. Now, what will be different next year is that we will not have the kind of campus reserves that we worked so hard to assemble over the past 3 years in preparation for this year's budget cut. And what we have given back to the state in the process is the equivalent of about 171 faculty positions, 124 staff positions, and $9.4 million in operating support. Those resources are gone, and they're not coming back. It's a little too early in the fiscal year to know exactly what to do, but we'll certainly put our heads to it this week as we get started. But you can be sure that we're going to be very conservative in authorizing new positions, both faculty and staff, that haven't already been released for recruitment. We just need to see what the situation is going to do in the months ahead. We also need to make sure that we direct our existing faculty resources towards those critical courses that are essential for student progression and graduation. Now, apart from the budget, we will have a full plate of initiatives and activities that will require our energy and attention. Priority number one for me is the completion of our institutional plan for the next 5 years. We are going to shortly share that draft with the trustees, and then we will release it to the campus for comment. Secondly is the SACS process that the provost has already described for you. Third, as a result of our budget situation, the cabinet and I are going to do something we did 5 years ago, which is to re-examine our budget from the ground up, particularly our state appropriations budget. We think we know pretty well where the money is, but we want to make sure we've looked under every rock to find all the dollars available. So it never hurts to go back and do that every now and again. Given the importance of that and the importance that everyone on campus understand the budget, we'll plan to include the elected leadership of the staff and faculty and the students, and we'll also invite the members of the Budget Council that was formed by Vice Chancellor Beth Hardin. So there'll be lots of people on campus who understand what's going on. Because of the condition of the state budget and the salary constraints that have been placed upon us, there's not much we can do that positively will impact your pocketbook. But we do have more to recognize the excellent work contributed by our employees, and we have the capacity to improve our procedures and processes so that this is an easier and more fun place to work. With respect to recognition, I've asked Stephen Rogelberg of the Organizational Science Consulting and Research Unit to examine ways that are common in higher education or in industry for providing non-cash compensation to employees. What are the additional ways we can recognize and reward employees other than changes in their base compensation? And we'll release that report in the fall for your comment. With respect to streamlining administrative procedures, we've committed ourselves in the institutional plan to re-examine 3 major institutional procedures over the next 5 years. We can't do everything at once, but I think we can certainly take on next year at least one major project. This might be things like converting our travel requests and reimbursement procedures to be a paperless project, or it might be that we convert high-volume personnel transactions into an all-paper environment. We'll ask your opinion on which of those we ought to undertake. But as we did a few years ago with the accounts payable process, I've just been amazed at what our employees can come up with when they set their minds to it and are given time to do it. Long term, and as our resources get back to an acceptable level, I think one of our priorities will be to actually establish a unit on campus that can be engaged in continuous re-examination and improvement of our administrative procedures. One major change instituted this past year as a result of a conscious effort to re-examine what we were doing was the creation of a consolidated division of university advancement led by our Vice Chancellor Niall Sorensen. I found in just a few months that combining the functions of university relations, community affairs, public relations, marketing, and alumni affairs has resulted in some promising new initiatives and greater cooperation across the campus. Our Director of Community Affairs, Ashley Oster, and our Associate Provost, Owen Furiseth, are working to build, for example, a campus-wide community engagement council. And they will be focusing first on the construction of a database that will fully collect and track all of our community engagement activities in this community, and that we'll use to set priorities for the future. Betty Doster, I mentioned earlier, our special assistant, is going to be working to broaden our presence in the greater Charlotte community, including not just Charlotte-Mecklenburg, but the regions and the counties that comprise this entire region. We have very ambitious goals here for Betty to accomplish and to bring me in to assist along with the other senior members of our staff, including our deans. We want to increase our reach and impact with elected officials at all levels of government. We want to recruit the very best students, not only internationally and nationally, but also from our own region. We want to increase the engagement of our alumni and friends in the work of the university. We want to expand partnerships with employers, and we generally want to expand our stature as a thought leader and as a neutral forum to help this community resolve its most pressing challenges. The 12 North Carolina counties in our region that comprise our region currently provide 15,000 of our students, 62,000 of our alumni, and are home to nearly 36,000 UNC Charlotte donors. UW, where'd that come from? If we don't leverage their presence in the Charlotte region to our advantage, we will miss a major opportunity to strengthen the influence and reputation of one of Charlotte's most important institutions. As has been the case for Charlotte for the better part of the last decade, we still have a variety of issues to deal with in terms of our physical facilities. The absence for the second straight year of any money in the budget for capital facilities planning or expansion is going to cause us some very serious problems over time if it's not resolved, particularly in terms of our facilities for science instruction and research. We've been planning on building a new science building for some time and for renovating our dated facilities in Burton, but the best estimate we have is that we won't see a new science building open for at least 7 years. The good news in that the silver lining in that cloud is that the 261 parking spaces that are located where the science building will still be there and available for parking and tailgating on Saturday. But the delay in the science building is really a problem for us, not only in terms of long-term growth, but particularly in terms of near-term improvements in the science instruction facilities and equipment. And we're going to get about some strategizing on that right away. We have a significant number of new facilities opening this year that the provost mentioned, including Center City, Epic, Second Motorsports Building, and we are opening a new parking deck, you'll be glad to hear, on the north side of campus near the facilities building, and there's another 1,000 plus parking spaces opening later in the year on the CRI campus. We have lots of new student housing in the works or ready to open. Phase 9 student housing, now known as Spruce Hall, another tree, is fully occupied this fall with 437 beds. And we continue to plan for Phase 10, which will be housed next door to Spruce Hall, and Phase 11, which will be a new housing development out by the high-rise residence halls. A new student dining complex near the high-rises will also be developed. We expect Phases 9 and 10 of housing to be open in the fall of 2013, and the new student dining complex to be open in the spring of 2014. We're also going to be tearing down some dated facilities. That's largely why we have to build new things. We'll be taking down Phase 3, your favorite Smurf Village, and in the summer of 2012, we'll take down Hunt Village as well. For those of you who've driven through the athletic and recreation area lately, you've seen lots going on. You've seen the new Halton Wagner tennis facility come out of the ground. We're having some issues with the tennis courts that need to be resurfaced again, but we're making progress on that. And you've also seen the ground preparation work for the football stadium and the field house. If you don't know, there's a website on the athletic site where you can actually watch the progress of that. No, we were not hit by a meteor. That's just what it looks like in the early stages, and it's a big, deep hole right now. Football will be a major activity for this coming year. Our head coach, Brad Lambert, is Brad here today, Judy? No, I guess he can't be. He's probably out recruiting. Your big, burly children. Brad is continuing to hire his staff, and he will announce his first class of redshirt freshmen and transfer students in the February of 2012. Those students, though, won't join us until the fall semester of 2012, and they have a year to try to get ready. We're not playing Virginia Tech next year, okay? Meanwhile, we have lots of committees underway under the direction of Judy Rose and her staff. They're working on a broad set of issues with football, including game day operations, parking, traffic management, tailgating, and public safety. We've got other committees working on academic issues, physical training and medical support, external affairs, and public relations. So it's going to be a busy year. Let me close this morning, as the provost suggested I might, with a comment about our development as a research and doctoral institution. Since Jim Woodward committed this institution to the path and secured the authority for us to pursue doctoral degrees in the mid-1990s, just a little over 15 years ago, we've made astounding progress. We have more than 800 students currently progressing through our doctoral programs, all 19 of them. We're very close to topping 100 doctoral students per year getting their degrees. And this past year, as I mentioned, we did see the approval of the doctoral program in bioinformatics and computational biology, our 19th. It's also true we've hit some bumps in the road. The budget conditions have placed some more teaching responsibilities upon our faculty in some cases, and we've lost some research productive faculty that we have not been able to replace right away. We've seen some decline in our annual externally funded research totals. With that said, I think I know we have some people who question whether or not, in light of all of our budget problems, we should continue forward with pursuing our goal of becoming a major research university. I have several answers to that challenge, not the least of which is that the case for being a major research institution in Charlotte is as compelling as when Jim Woodward announced it in the mid-1990s. Anyone who's spent any length of time at UNC Charlotte will know that we've never had enough resources to support all that we've aspired to do. But our faculty and staff have been amazingly resilient and resourceful, and we sit in a very strong position in a lot of fundamental respects. We have excellent, well-equipped facilities, with more coming online. We've been able to increase the size and scope of our graduate financial support and our graduate programs. We've increased graduate degree production and reduced attrition out of our graduate programs, especially at the doctoral level. And although we have been not able to hire everyone we would like, we've been hiring some very good people, and we have lots of great people still remaining. So I not only think it's important for us to continue to build our research enterprise, but to accelerate it if we can, particularly in disciplines that normally rely upon outside support. It is in our institutional plan as a goal right now that we try to achieve the $50 million level by the end of the next 5 years. That's a significant increase. That is a stretch goal from our last year we were something like $37 million, 2 years ago rather, and this last year at $31 million. So it is no question a high goal. It's also likely to become more competitive out there for grant dollars, particularly at the federal level, if, as we expect, there'll be some reductions in federal grant support. So how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to work hard, but we have to start with our processes, and that means our research administration project, what we call RAP, has to get done. Our researchers have to have the best possible support for pre-grant and post-grant support. We need a coherent strategy, secondly, to align our faculty research strengths with funding opportunities from government and industry. We think there's immense potential in the defense industry for UNC Charlotte, and we need to begin to exploit it more completely. Third, we need to assess the success and needs for improvement in our centers and institutes. We've made huge investments in those centers and institutes, and we need to make sure that they're performing in a way that justifies the people, the space, and the equipment we've placed there. Fourth, we need to move forward with our portal building. The portal building, which is an acronym that only Bob Wilhelm remembers. We'll be populating that building with our business incubator, the Ben Craig Center, the technology transfer operation, and our industry partnership innovation programs. Our plan at the moment is to convene small groups of faculty researchers to talk with us in lunchtime settings about what we need to do to improve our research productivity in terms of external grants. And depending on what kind of advice we get, we may form a joint faculty administration task force to be focused on that effort. All of these activities will be on Bob Wilhelm's plate as the new Vice Chancellor for Research and Economic Development, and as Joan mentioned, Bob has ably led the Charlotte Research Institute for the past 6 years. Bob has a big set of shoes to fill. Steve Moser has done a wonderful job of overseeing our research operation and representing us with elected officials in Washington, D.C. for the past 14 years. A great deal of the money that we've had to equip our laboratories and to make them truly high-tech has been because Steve understood and worked the federal appropriations process. Steve Moser never met an earmark he didn't like. Steve, are you here? Thank you. And Steve, of course, has been the one of the leading actors behind the RAP initiative, and Bob will take that over shortly. Steve will be around for several more months working out of the Provost's office, and we'll have a more public shout out later in the year. The federal relations part of Steve's job will be turned over to Betty Doster, our Special Assistant for Constituent Relations, who will handle our formal liaison with both our state and local elected officials, but now also our Washington, D.C. delegation. Let me, as I close the program this morning, invite you to stay around for the general meeting of the faculty. It takes us about 7 or 8 minutes to reset the stage, and Michael and I and Joan will be up here. Cabinet members will stay to answer any questions you might have. If you have to leave, this is the time to leave, but no raise for you. I wanted to tell you that I think this is, despite the challenges, it's going to be a great fall semester. We're going to have the formal ceremony opening the Center City building on November 16th. Our guests are going to include former Senator Al Simpson and former UNC President Erskine Bowles. They'll be talking about deficit reduction and their lives in politics together, and Chris William, the host of Carolina Business Review, will be moderating that discussion. Now, I got to tell you, I'm torn because that same night, Taylor Swift is in town. But I'm sure Alan Erskine will substitute, particularly for my age group. So I appreciate your attention, and thanks for being here.